Let's stay with the flooding and get an update on plans to help people who've lost their homes. Now, the Premier told us last week that at least 16,000 homes had been affected by the flooding in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's get the latest now from Lindokuhle Xulu, who joins us. So, Lindo, today the Cooperative Governance Minister, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, and her counterpart in the province met at the Disaster Management Centre, and they spoke extensively about how they're going to help people who've lost their homes. What is the latest count on people whose homes have been completely destroyed?
Well, we do understand, Sally, that that number still sits in the thousands. I'm not quite sure about recalling exactly the specific numbers we've been given, but the visit today by COGTA Minister as well as the MEC of COGTA in the province to various areas that had been affected was essentially to go back and check whether relief is in fact being brought to people that are in need, being brought to those people that remain homeless. You did rightfully say that Pietermaritzburg there, the Disaster Management Center, was one of the first places that she visited. She also went to some of the places that are still a danger to those communities nearby. I mean, at the Henley Dam is where she stopped as a second stop, but essentially checking on some of those areas, and she was confronted by images of people and vehicles simply crossing in unsafe areas still. This is the dam where Sergeant Ndwache as well as a K9 unit, they both lost their lives, and so they were going to check on those situations, but also they finally moved to some of those community centers that are housing a lot of people that had been displaced. So all of this was just a matter of checking on whether relief is being brought to these people, on whether interventions are still in place and intact to ensure that there is this continual recovery of the many things that had been lost, lives, livelihoods, as well as just making sure that people get housing sooner than later. So we understand that officials in the province are working around the clock, particularly to make sure that those that had lost their homes are actually given temporary shelters, and that particular problem is sorted in the long term. So there were various stops, but one of the things that the minister did tell us was that the Auditor General's office will be descending upon the shores of KwaZulu-Natal to ensure that everything that is taking place in terms of relief and in terms of reconstruction of infrastructure, that it is by the books. They're saying also that they've partnered with universities to ensure that they're able to check in terms of the scope of work that is there and the cost thereafter in terms of what it will cost them, so as to not pay people money more than they are actually supposed to be paid. So those are some of the things that she was checking on. We did try to compile all of this information into a package earlier on, and it's basically just covering some of the things that the minister spoke about on her journey earlier on. But take a listen to, in fact, what we saw throughout the day in this visit from the COGTA Minister. Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Minister Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma says reconstruction of damaged infrastructure must be done with the consideration of climate change. Dlamini-Zuma visited the Disaster Management Center in Pietermaritzburg, where intervention is being coordinated for flood victims. She also visited areas of concern like the Henley Dam, where Sergeant Ndwache and a K9 unit lost their lives. The minister says work is underway to change situations in those areas.
The climate change scientists have told us that the eastern part of our country will be wetter and there'll be frequent floods, whilst the western part may be drier and frequent droughts. So it means in preparing for this disaster, we must make sure that we take that into consideration.
The COGTA minister also visited Cell this time around.
As new people get found, then the number will be revised. But I think the slow revision is because now we don't want to make the same mistake. We want to be sure that when we revise it, postmortems have been done and people are actually confirmed that they died from the floods.
COGTA Minister Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma says government is keeping a close eye on the use of allocated funds. We are told the Auditor General is auditing every project as it happens. Government has also partnered with universities to research on the cost of each scope of work to address issues of overpaying contractors. Lindokuhle Xulu, Pietermaritzburg.